So we're making a pumpkin loaf, but not just any pumpkin loaf. It's gonna be a rosemary, olive oil pumpkin loaf, and I'm very excited about it. And I tested this recipe out this weekend and I just couldn't wait to share it because it's just so good. We're starting off with our wet ingredients. So I have my 2 eggs in there, and then we're gonna add a whole can of pumpkin. Just adding the whole thing in here. Now we're adding our 3/4 cup of olive oil, and I know olive oil might sound weird, but the combination of olive oil, rosemary, and pumpkin is just, it's really good. Next, we're adding 2 teaspoons of vanilla, which I just kind of eyeball it. And now we're gonna add 1 cup of sugar and a 1/2 cup of dark brown sugar. And now we're gonna mix this all up. I definitely should have used a larger bowl, but here we are. So now that we've got our wet ingredients mixed, we're gonna work on the dry. So we're starting with 1½ cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of kosher salt. And now for all the fun fall spices, we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, actually 1½ teaspoons of cinnamon. Here's the extra 1/2 teaspoon, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, and then we're gonna add about a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and I'm just going to eyeball it because I like to use the fresh stuff, so I just kind of grate it right in. And then lastly, we're just going to chop up some fresh rosemary. And now that our rosemary is all nice and finely chopped, we could just measure a tablespoon and put that right in with our dry. Now we're just gonna whisk this all up. Now we'll add our wet to our dry and mix it till it's just moistened. And by mixing the wet and dry separately thoroughly before you mix them together helps prevent you from overmixing in the end. And when your batter is nice and smooth like this and you don't see any clumps of dry ingredients, it's ready to bake. We have our greased and lined loaf pan here, and we're just going to pour our batter in. And then I just like to smooth the top a bit, and then we're gonna top it off with a bit of sugar in the raw, also known as demerara sugar. And lastly, some pumpkin seeds. Now we're gonna bake our loaf for about 45 minutes to an hour. Came out so good.